Hi, everyone. We're back with another great interview from Oikos Camp. I'm really excited to have Kai Locher here. I met Kai about a month ago now at the Social Banking Institute's camp. Similar to our camp, it was a great opportunity to get together with many really smart people and learn about sustainable finance and social banking. So, Kai, I'm really excited that you're here, and I'd love to ask you who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here as well. It was great meeting you in Luxembourg and hearing a little bit about your work and the ambition that you have in that. And happy to contribute. I hope I can live up to your expectations here. Yeah, in answer to your question, so my name is Kai Locher. Currently, I run the Institute for Social Banking is the official title. I'm the managing director of that organization. I landed there with a little bit of a curved biography, starting from, doing something totally different, studying physics and Russian language. Then from deriving from that into being a documentary filmmaker, and then from that being a organization development consultant. And that's actually where when I started working with leadership development for mission-driven organizations, that's where I met Triodos Bank. Although I knew the organization before, but I met Triodos Bank in a work reality that was around 10, 11 years ago. Triodos Bank is one of the most sustainable banks based in Europe, one of the leading examples of a sustainable bank. And I've worked there. After being consultant, I moved working for them for a couple of years as their group manager learning and development, building up the internal academy that offered programs. The challenge there is that in the organization we had to offer programs that make the mission and the vision and the ideas behind it accessible to all the co-workers of the organization. Especially when new co-workers come in from a traditional banking background or from a traditional banking education, there is the need to explain a little bit the different perspective in this kind of banking. And you have to explain that in a way that it's actually really owned by the co-workers. So it has a special demand for these kind of programs. And that's what I built up in the organization. And after a couple of years, I left the organization. This is now 3 years ago. Moved back to being consultant and also moving into the Institute for Social Banking, first as a co-director and now since last January as the managing director. That's a little bit my work biography. Which path do you want me to take on this? Shall I talk a little bit about the ISB or the Institute, or?
Yeah, maybe we could talk a little bit about the ISB, and then something that in your biography just really jumped out to me was what we've been talking a lot of this week of how do we provide resources and trainings and education to people who are coming from this like more traditional perspective, but really want to learn more about sustainability, learn more about sustainable finance. And like the messaging is so crucial, like how to present this in a way that is understandable, but also motivates and move people towards a better agenda for the planet. So maybe weave that in too.
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah. So maybe a couple words on the Institute for Social Banking. So we're a network organization, a European-based network organization, bringing together 16 sustainable or social financial institutions. The term social finance is even, it's a complicated word in itself, maybe already. Just a few words on that. The wording in this field has changed over the years. And there's many different words used in this field, from sustainable finance, ethical finance, responsible finance, social finance. The term Institute for Social Banking was founded, the institute was founded 16 years ago. And in that time, these banks that came together, they thought of themselves as being social banks, where the mission was really to use finance and use banking to create a sustainable society with human dignity at its core. This is one of the expressions of the mission. So the working with money in society had to be done in such a way that the society would, or that the efforts would strengthen the development towards a sustainable society with human dignity at its core. So from that origin, there has always been these two sides to it. So both the sustainability as well as a human side, or an image of society where human beings live together in a harmonic way, even together with not only human beings but other species as well. So kind of this double angle was in that mission. Therefore, it was not only the Institute for Sustainable Finance, but yeah, that's the word now, the social finance. And I find myself often having to explain it a little bit because there's so many confusions around these words. But then when you look at the actions that we do, we offer development programs for the co-workers of the member banks, and for all of those who want to either become a co-worker or are affiliated with the field, maybe by being in that field or working in a traditional bank or working in organizations around it, but all connected with this mission of creating a better world through banking. One of the slogans we also use is change finance and finance change. That's what the members do. They change finance in their traditional banking, or traditional but almost traditional banking approach, as well as that by doing that, they try to showcase that a different way of doing finance is possible. And also on that, they've built an agenda of also influencing regulatory systems up to the UN principles for responsible banking, as well as developing methodologies such as PCAF, the Platform for Carbon Accounting Financials. All of those things are also coming from that movement of these banks. So there's a movement of these banks. They all work on this mission, and the people that work in these banks, they can come to the Institute for Social Banking for development programs. They can be either, I mean, the flagship model or the flagship store of our offering is the summer school for sustainable and social finance, which you joined, Stephen. A week-long conference where we share best practices and also develop solutions for the coming decades. And then around that, there are different other activities, which you can think of a little bit as communities of practice. We call them expert exchange labs, that we bring groups of bankers, groups of co-workers, groups of specialists together around certain themes. For example, sustainable finance, or banking for a 1.5 degree pathway, but also banking related topics such as impact measurement or digitalization, which was a question for these banks over the past couple of years. But also thematic things like, for example, how to finance the necessary transition in the food and agriculture. Or one that specifically interests me is how to finance, how to do your banking in such a way that you strengthen resilient communities. So kind of thematic questions. These questions, we work with them in these expert exchange labs. We bring together the specialists from the organizations, let them exchange, and let them together, maybe with help with external specialists, let them together develop new ideas and solutions. That's basically the institute. And of course there's the newsletter and there's all the messaging and community management online, of course, that's also happening, which you can also join to get some of the info. Hello, Kelly. Kelly is joining. Maybe on your point about this necessity to develop co-workers that want to work in this field. What I see in general, when you start to work really mission driven, when you start to really think of your organization as the main goal is to create a certain impact in society or in the world, then that shifts sort of the steering, the compass of the organization, and that translates also into smaller processes in the organization. For example, there was at the board level at Triodos Bank, there's always been, as in any board, there's a discussion about what is the return on equity, what is the shareholders' return that we have to give, and what do we steer for. But you see in the organization that's mission driven that shareholder revenue is not the main goal. So it's not, the goal is not simply to get as much money to the shareholders. There's always a dialogue between different stakeholders in the organization, and also stakeholders outside the organization. There's always the balance between the return, but also the impact. And then also especially in the financial world, there's always the risk. So risk, return, and impact, those three should be balanced. And one example that highlights the difficulty for people joining these mission-driven financial institutions is, at one point there was a new person. This is a couple, let's say, decades ago, 1.5 decades ago or so. So in a different growth phase, the organization was still small, but there was a new person joining Triodos Bank for responsible for the advising the executive board for their financial, so kind of like a CFO kind of person. And this person, after half a year, he said, well, I just don't get it. I advise you in a certain way and you take different decisions, and I don't get it. Explain this. What is happening here? And it was just like up to the point, like, I don't get my job anymore. I did this job for 20 years in a traditional bank, but now I don't get it anymore. And that was basically because this person had to adapt to the fact that there were other factors also counted into the decision-making process. And this is a very, very clear-cut example. Usually it's less clear-cut, but there's always this element. You hear it a lot when people start working in Triodos Bank or one of the other member banks. You hear a lot that people say, well, I first need a year to see what this new world is. And then I start to understand a little bit. And then maybe even I need my conversations with the seniors, and I need my reading a little bit, and I need maybe going to a values seminar or a cultural event, like internal event. So I need my verbal handover, so to say, to start to learn why the things are moving the way they are moving in these organizations. So you see that on all levels. I've observed it in all of the programs that we did internally in Triodos Bank, and I also see it in the work that we do at the Institute for Social Banking, where very often, and I don't know, maybe you recognize that too, Stephen, when in Luxembourg in the conference, very often what happens is that people, even joining from different banks, so a member bank in Sweden sends a couple of co-workers, member bank in Switzerland, member bank in Spain, and they come together, and then they discover that, hey, finally I meet people that actually understand what we're doing. So, hey, wow, this is really strange. There's people on the total different side of Europe working in total different organization, but now we finally have a connection and we feel that we're working on the same thing. And that's I think a very strong and very important element for this, basically for any change movement. But definitely also for this change movement in a world that's so dominated with mental models that once you try to do it a little bit different, you are feeling either lonely or lost, or you can quickly feel lonely or lost or frustrated, because you are actually trying to move away from the dominant mental models, and that in itself does something to you, does something to your being. So it's kind of like a struggle, and that struggle, I would say, needs to be taken care of a little bit. And that's, I think, where this development programs can play a huge role, should play a huge role. Plus, the other thing is that, especially in the traditional financial world that's so dominated also by regulatory demands, legal, or from the regulators or policymakers, it's so the normal way of doing is so heavily pushed on the organization that leaves little room to think and breathe and reflect and find other ways. It's very difficult to step out of the thinking that is dominating the organizations, and that also leads to the difficulty of finding solutions for the problems of the next decade. So to shape the future, you need to find new solutions for the problems, and therefore also maybe you even need to find new mental models. So therefore also in the programs that we do, we often speak about, we take a step back and we say, what actually is money, and what actually is the role of money in society, and what actually is the role of a bank in society. What is the value of a bank in a group of people trying to create a better world, or having to create a better world, having to solve certain big systemic problems. And these more reflective questions are very important to ask. It's very important to discuss these questions, to raise the consciousness about that. But it's very difficult to do on a daily job, and I think also that's where that's a place where development work can step in. Seeing the future. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think we feel that a bit, right, Julia, with the oikos community, and how important that is as a way to like connect students from all of these different universities and show like, hey, you can change your education program that's working in other universities, get inspired here. And I just wanted to say like how this focus on imagination and the what if is so powerful for us. And that's something we reflected on 2 days ago. Like what would the financial system look like if we could redesign it, and what would it smell like? What would it feel like? What would it, be like, hear like? So
yeah. And that's interesting that you do that, and I think it's super important to do it. It's also what started these member banks. They were all created in each individual creation story of these member banks is a phase where there were groups of people coming together saying, well, what is like imagine that we have a world XYZ and that banking serves that world. And so how does it then look? What are the banking processes? What should we do in that doing the banking that allows for this new development? And I think also we've asked the CEOs of the member banks to give a quote that inspired them. We asked them a couple of years ago. So kind of like, what is the quote that gives you the inspiration for your work building these organizations? And one of the quotes that was given by the CEO of GLS, which is a German member bank, to me is very dear, and it describes this same thing. It is to overcome the anxiety for a future we fear, we have to create images of the future we want. To overcome the anxiety for the future we fear, we have to create images of the future we want. And that's the same thing. It's like this creating an image that you want as an answer to the paralyzing fear and the sort of oh God, everything goes wrong. but yes, everything goes wrong, but you know, you have to come into action. You start developing, and to do that, you need these images of the future you want. And I think the student community is like, it's one of the, you could say it's one of the life phases that has the task to do that.
Yeah.
It's like you have the task to take the time and to think and to rethink and sketch and imagine and create, and then from there on infuse the rest of the world with these ideas and seeing these pictures and trying to build them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe we can hear from one of our student leaders. Yulia, would you like to ask a question and respond to what Kaha said?
Okay, thank you. When you talked about being burned out or losing the compass in the community, also we can feel it sometimes even with our community, you know, not just by ourselves, but we're doing something, but will be will we achieve our goals? You know, how do we keep up the rhythm of the community? How do we keep growing with new goals, new people, new platforms? How do we find the motivation to do that and just in a stable pace?
Yeah, very good question. And I can totally relate to that to this feeling of tiredness and sort of burnout. The problem with when you start changing the world, you're never done, right? So you can, like, that was also, we we literally spoke about that in some of the projects in Triodos. Sorry. Where we said, well, yeah, we started creating these events to celebrate success, but nobody showed up. And we said, well, there's not a culture of celebrating success. And then we realized that no, because you do a good job, and then you drive home and you turn on the radio, and the world is still not saved. So there's a next problem you have to work on, and that's so how do I manage that? So there's one word that you mentioned that for me is very crucial. That's rhythm. I think of all of this, and that's basically something I picked up in the work, in the organization development work, and also my work on conflicts in teams. Some of my mentors taught me that for all of that stuff, you need a process, and then you need rhythm. The things are never changed or never organized in one event. So you need a couple. You need to organize a process, and then you stick to the rhythm and trust the rhythm. And that's one thing that I use. And then I observe the rhythm. If a process gets like wobbly, or people start dropping off, or events don't materialize, or, well, then there's something there, because the rhythm doesn't work. So you have to be aware, like, hey, the rhythm doesn't work. Should we change the process? Is it not the right process anymore? Should we change the events? What we need to do something to get the rhythm going. So rhythm is one. And then the other element of your question tapped into, the way I heard it, tapped into how do I personally deal with that lack of like that burnout feeling, or that tiredness. And I have to say that even after all of these years, I still don't really have an answer to that, because it's still a struggle. I have my own disciplines. I've developed disciplines. Like I have my like, it's like the 7 habits of Covey. Like, you have your week planning, you have your goals, you have your roles, you do what's important and not what's like all of that quadrant stuff and all of that. So there's some of that I've ingrained in my work. My morning routines, especially one that's very dear to me that I try to keep an eye on, is being with friends. So every Sunday when I do my week planning, I go like, where do I see a friend this week? And when I look back, like, did I see 1 or 2 friends? And not like seeing them, like just hanging out, that too, but also, did I see a friend? Did I just had a little bit of attention for a friend? So those little things, but that's all, like, I call it, it's like in sort of a bucket of personal leadership disciplines to keep you keep you sane, basically. Because that can be, it is a very tiring and very challenging task to work on these issues. Also because you're so aware of the like the amount of problems that we're facing, and you're seeing so many details of it, and you know so much. It's like, it's also a little bit of like the knowledge of the problems is weighing on you. Like, if only you could not know. But the reality is that's not how it is, you know, and therefore you have to act. I think the acting, that's, now that I say that, I think that's one of the challenges, I think, for the coming decades, that we know everything, like everything is there. And if we don't know, we can find it. And, or we ask somebody, or we Google. So the knowledge is there. But then from knowing into acting, that's a skill that we should develop, and we should help each other develop that. So maybe that's an answer to your question. I don't know, Julia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kai. It is inspirational to hear, and it is great to feel this connection between the organizations towards acting. And I feel that that's something that Oikos wants to be a part of with the Institute for Social Banking. So
Good.
Thank you for inspiring us this morning. Really appreciate it.
Good, thanks. Well done. And I always like meeting like-minded, inspirational people. So thanks for this invitation also. Just one thing, maybe I can do. I can promote that we do offer also internships. So that's maybe especially for student communities, maybe an interesting thing to know, that if you're looking for an internship, do look at the website and see what's available. We always have place for 2 or 3 interns.
Amazing. We were doing some research on all of the amazing resources out there for jobs and opportunities, and the search engine optimization of the Institute for Social Banking is pretty good. Because when we were searching, one of the internships with Triodos popped up as the top link. So
oh, good. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Kai. I hope you have a great morning.
You too. Enjoy. And feel free to reach out anytime if you want to know more.
Amazing.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye, Julia. Bye, Stephen.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.